Kia ora and welcome back to another episode of Untidy. Now, if you have listened to our episode called Going Solo and Donor Dads with Jo Mackie, you'll know that we ended it with a few follow-on questions. Jo told us about her journey to becoming a single mum by choice, the IVF, the donor process, the beautiful and sometimes brutal reality of solo parenting. Throughout that whole story, one person kept coming up. Her donor, Kyle. And honestly, you had a lot of questions. Who is this guy? What made him do it? Can you talk to him and have him on the show? So we asked Jo to make an introduction. Kyle said yes, and here we are. Today, we're joined by Kyle Layland. He donated sperm as a young man. He's now 30, living in the UK with his partner, and has a relationship with both Jo and her son Ashton that has developed from the time Jo was pregnant. And it sounded from Jo's side of the story unique and incredible, and we can't wait to hear the other side of the story as well. So, Kyle, welcome to Untidy. We are very, very happy to have you with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's really nice because oftentimes we have people on this podcast and we hear their story, but it's quite rare that we get to then meet one of the people in the story. So I feel like we're all very, very invested in you, Kyle, just so you know.
No pressure at all.
Yeah, I mean, it did set a pretty high bar of who I am, so I'm hoping I live up to those expectations.
Well, talking about who you are, can you give us like a quick picture of that? You know, what your life looks like right now before we rewind the clock a bit. Like, who is Kyle Layland?
Yeah, definitely. So it's probably important, and the accent just doesn't fit in New Zealand or Britain. I'm like discovering. So when I was 7, my parents moved to New Zealand, and then I relocated back to the UK when I was 23 after I donated, which obviously was quite a surprise to some of the recipients, the donor mums. But yeah, I did the whole thing, Victoria University in Wellington, came out of it, grad scheme at Deloitte, everything you're supposed to do, and then decided sort of, okay, I'm either here till partner living in Auckland or I go and have a bit of an OE. So I came over here, moved to London, worked for Deloitte, always had a dream to work for Vogue magazine. And while I was there, a job came up and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a punt. And I got it. So was working for Vogue magazine, living the whole Devil Wears Prada, dream.
Oh, amazing.
And then COVID hit. So what was supposed to be me going between London and New York quite regularly turned into working from my aunt's spare bedroom. And it wasn't as glamorous as we all thought it would be. But yeah, and then since then, I've just been contracting with government. So I traded in high-end fashion for public sector work.
You've done the whole
quite a difference.
Yeah, massive difference. There is no red stilettos anywhere to be seen in government. But yeah, otherwise it was an impossible dream that I never thought I'd get. And although it didn't work out the way that I thought it would, it's a box that's ticked. So I'm happy.
Yeah. So whereabouts are you in the UK now?
I'm in Manchester. So this is like a whole other story. But while I was in London, obviously COVID hit. And that cut my experience quite short. I think I was there for about 8-10 months and lived up my life while I was there and absolutely loved it. And then I thought, okay, I got to do the serious thing, buy a house. So I was on a project with the Department for Education. I think it's called Ministry for Education, if I remember correctly, in New Zealand. Had a job in London working for Department for Education, but the office was in Manchester. So I came up here to look at houses, see if it was somewhere that I wanted to buy, because everyone knows the more north you go, typically the friendlier the people are and the cheaper everything is. So I came up and both those things ended up being true. And then what I didn't expect was meeting my partner, Chris. So we've been together 5 years now. And yeah, we literally just went back and forth between London and Manchester. And then I made the move up here.
Beautiful.
That's so true about the UK, isn't it? Like I remember when just before I moved to London and did like the 2-year New Zealand stint, somebody said to me, make sure you get out of London because London is not an accurate representation of the UK. There's so much to see, and London is one part of it. But like people are so welcoming when you get outside of London. And it's so true. Like as I was traveling around, it's like, God, people are much more friendly, aren't they? Other than London, everyone's just, head down, doing their thing.
Facing the metro.
And literally, it's like you go into the tube and then you pop out and you realize that an hour of your life has just passed you by and you haven't, what's happened in that time. Everyone's in their own little world. And everyone always says London is like its own country. I think it's its own planet. Like, where do you find a city with 9 million people living in it that has all these different cultures and people? It's incredible, but it is a lot.
Yeah. I remember I did a stint there as well, and I left in the global financial crisis because although I've got dual citizenship, no one was going to hire someone that sounded like a Kiwi at that time. And there were like 300 people going for my level of role. So I was like, well, I think I'll just take this as my cue to go. But like, I remember deciding to leave as well. I'm like, I want to leave before this place gets on top of me so that the memories are all sweet. And I did. And I was glad. And it's extraordinary how, like, it doesn't matter where you go in London, it takes an hour to get anywhere. Like, it's just, it's an hour. It doesn't matter where you're going, it's an hour.
Yeah, I made the worst mistake and thought it would be a wise idea to buy a car living in London.
Wow.
And I decided to test it one time, and I drove from Greenwich to Chelsea. And when I say it was the most stressful experience of my life, like, that was horrific. I would never, ever be doing that again.
Oh, God. All right, well, take us back to younger Kyle. How old were you when you donated, and what was going on in your life at that time that led you to make such a decision, as a young man that was so mature and so selfless?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually at uni still. So I think I was about 19 when it sort of came into my radar, because any form of like donation, whether it be sperm or eggs, it's a conversation or a topic that you don't come across every day, and not many people know. I mean, I even just went to the barber just now, and I was sat there and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing after this?" And saying that I'm going on a podcast to talk about sperm donation was at the bottom of what he was probably expecting to hear. But I could have just said, going home, but I was like, no, like, bugger it. Let's just see how he reacts. And I actually enjoy doing that because it's something where people just don't register it. But for me, I was getting my hair cut by a hairdresser. I didn't go to a barber when I lived in New Zealand. And this lady, Shelley, was all emotional when I got there. And usually she was on point. And I was like, what's going on? And she said, "Oh, I've just had this lady in before you, and she's basically given up her dream of buying a house so that she can have a child." And it kind of struck me as, let alone it's hard enough being on your own and trying to save that sort of cash, but getting to a point where you can anchor yourself somewhere, and then having to make the decision between that and your lifelong dream of being a parent, that kind of struck a chord with me. And then literally that afternoon, I was going back to work, and a woman was showing photos of these children. And I said to her, I was like, "Oh, they're beautiful. Are they yours?" And she said, "Well, technically I'm an egg donor." And I was like, right, this is twice in one day. I'm just going to go home and Google what is going on. So I realized Fertility Associates was, one of the only places that people could go, which, I mean, probably a controversial topic, but I don't think anyone should have to pay that much money to be a parent. I just think it's absurd. But anyway, I contacted them and I said, "Look, I think I'm interested in donating, but I don't know if I'm healthy, what the story is. I don't even know if I can have children." So they invited me in, and I walked into reception. The first thing they said was, "Look, it's not every day we get a now 20-year-old coming in and saying they want to give their sperm. So we just need to put you through a psych check to make sure that you're sane." And I was like, okay, fine. So that was step one of what was, I don't want to use the word grueling, but it was intensive process. And I think intensive because it had to be, you're talking about creating life. And so, yeah, that's where it all started. So I had the counseling sort of session that was all ticked off. And then you go through a series of sort of blood tests. And then send you home with this booklet, and you've got to fill out all this information about what were you like as a child. Personally, I don't know what I was like as a child. So I just text Dad, was like, "Describe me as a kid." Wrote that down. Then you've got to go into any sort of, obviously, diseases or, any bad genetics, using hyphens there. It's just like all of these things that can, that you can have, that you could potentially pass down that you're unaware of. So through that, I discovered I was a carrier of cystic fibrosis. So then I knew that my brothers, only one of them had a child at that time, and I knew the other one was planning it. So I said, "Just to let you know, you're a full-blooded brother. You may also be a carrier." So it's just something to be aware of as you go into this chapter of your life. And then, yeah, I just carried on. And then after that, you have your sperm tested, obviously the most important part. So I had to go in. Now, I just want to say that was an experience in itself, right? You are walking into this office and there is literally almost like a hole in the wall on this floor, and a hand comes through and passes you a cup. And then you go into another room, and it's safe to say they assume that all sperm donors are straight or heterosexual, because all of the materials provided were very much women.
Boobs.
And so I was just like, right, I might struggle with this. So yeah, that was a thing in itself. But yeah, eventually got there, gave them what they wanted. And then they sent it away and tested it. And then you get an email. And I was shocked to see that someone's job title in New Zealand is sperm coordinator. I thought that was fascinating.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And then, yeah, I got this email and it was just comparing me to the World Health Organization, which 20-year-old male, off the charts. So that was a bit of a pat on the back moment for myself. I was like, okay, not just fertile, but very fertile. So I was like, let's just get as much of this out of me as I can so that as many women can have as many babies as they want. And I know that Jo, obviously from when you had your session with her, she always jokes around saying, the only reason she's got Ashton is because she chose 20-year-old sperm, and that was like fighting way to get her going. And then basically you've got to wait for a period. I can't remember now whether it was 6 or 12 months, and they sort of suggest celibacy and all the things in that time, because they collect the samples, which they say sperm is most potent every 48 hours. So for anyone trying out there, just hold off every 48 hours and then give it a go. But yeah, it was I'd go in 8 times over 16 days, I think it was. And they do reimburse you, if you've got to take time off work or whatever that is. But I do want to debunk the myth while we're here. I was not paid for sperm donation. So yeah, you don't get paid. So that's that. And then, yeah, I think that was it. And then you wait the 6 to sort of 12 months, and then you go in and then you give another sample. And if that matches what was given 12 months ago, then that's it. You're available for choosing, basically.
Like, what do they mean? Because matches and also asking someone to be celibate for 6 to 12 months is quite a big ask,
Yeah. I mean, remembering I was also sort of like 20 years old, discovering
20 years old.
Yeah, like, come on.
12 months is an eternity at 20.
Yeah, I know, exactly. But I did it. Yeah, pulled it through, because I was like, right, you're doing this for a reason. You're going to get everything. And then, yeah, that was that. So, and then I didn't hear much after that. And it was sort of felt like even now, if I want an update, I have to be the one that emails fertility associates to say, what's going on. And then it's quite clinical. You kind of just sent this table back of, that they put the names of the women who have said that, they agree to have a relationship and all that sort of stuff, which again is so backwards, because it's so rare that a donor wants to or is willing to be known. For me, I had when I was at uni, one of my flatmates, she discovered that her father wasn't her real father at the age of 21. Wow. And I saw, the damage that did to her at that time, and the effect it had on her mental health, and sort of all the things going around her and battling with that. And I just said, I don't want any of the kids that, that come as a result of me being a donor to go through that. So I left it completely in the women's court. I just said, whatever is right for you. And so I've got obviously Jo, and then there's another woman, and then a same-sex female couple who I have contact with, and that ends up being 4 children in total that I get photos from, or we FaceTime, or whatever it might be. And even that's a challenge, right? Because at that age, these kids are sort of, we've done it ever since. So, a lot of them, you've got Ashton now, who's coming up to primary school. Another girl, obviously don't want to name names, respecting them, but another girl who's a bit older. She was the first. And then you've got the brother and sister who are younger than Ashton. And it's, how do you explain to them the process of it? So, Ashton, he does call me dad. He says, Daddy Kyle and all that sort of stuff. And Jo's rationale is, when he's old enough to understand, I'll explain it to him. And I know that another mum, the first recipient, she didn't really know how to communicate, if she has this child, how's she going to tell this whole story of how much she fought for her to show how much she loved her when she gets older. And she ended up getting like a bit of rope and putting a bead on for every decision, every hard email, every conversation, every test, everything like this. And now she's got this, I want to say rope because it's so long, of all these different things. And then the last bead is me, to say that was the last piece of the puzzle to create you. And I know
it makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is crazy. And that little girl's got 2 little Lego men that she called Kyle and Chris, and she understands we live in the UK. And to help with the UK thing, the only thing I've ever done for all of the kids, money-wise or as in terms of a gift, is give them all a Paddington bear to say, I live in the UK, that's your piece of me and all that sort of stuff. So it's been such a moving. It's 10 years of my life now, right? And it's crazy to think that half of that was, you kind of think, okay, well, I've gone through all of this, I've then done it all. And then it goes in the process of, well, now they need to choose, who they want. And you just provide photos of you as a kid. And then they get that booklet of information. They know everything about you, your blood type, what you're carrying, and what you're doing as a job. So I remember Jo telling me it was between me as a Deloitte consultant or a beekeeper. And she just like, it wasn't just the occupation, but it was also the fact that, I was so open to being known and putting that in their court. And I think she appreciated that. And so did some of the other recipients. So, yeah.
Wow. What an incredibly rewarding experience. How does it feel to think, I've got all these kind of children all around that are part of you? Like, is that just such an incredible feeling?
Yeah, it is very much so. I think a part of me, when I live sort of my everyday life, obviously they'll cross my mind every now and again, but I try to focus my energy onto it when, like Jo will send me whenever she gets round to it. Obviously, like, she's a single mom and she's got a little boy to look after. So I get it, it's not going to be every day that I'm getting a message, and we very much have our own lives. But when we do connect, it is really special. And, being able to be on FaceTime with Ashton, and he'll take me around all of his teddy bears and show me the zoo that he's got and all this sort of stuff, and he's just seeing his curiosity in him grow up and everything. I think that's that's an absolute honor, really. There's no other way of saying it. Is I never anticipated going into this that there would be anything sort of in it for me per se, in terms of being able to watch them grow up and see their personalities develop and form interests and all those sorts of things. It's just insane, honestly.
And on your donor profile form, you asked potential recipients a really thoughtful question. How would they respond if their child turned out to be different in any way, whether it be sexuality, religion, or otherwise? What was your intention in asking that? Because I know that really stood out for Jo when we spoke to her about it.
Yeah. So, obviously I'm gay, and even me being able to say those words and be confident doing it has been a journey. And I think, I came out when I was 12 years old. So, that's super young. You don't really expect a kid to know the birds and the bees, let alone know whether they're, what sexuality they are at that age. And that really took my parents aback. And so how they responded to that situation wasn't ideal for a 12-year-old boy to go through. But at the same time, I know that their intent in that approach was a way of protecting me, just because they knew that no matter what minority you fall into, if you're not a part of the majority, life's innately harder. And so that was a challenge for me to get through. So that sort of went on for about 7 years or so before it was sort of, I could be comfortably myself with my family, let alone with anyone else. And so I just didn't really want a chunk of a child's, childhood being consumed by all of that and sort of challenging expectations. Honestly, I just think that if you're going to be a parent, try not to have any expectations, for the love of God, because no matter what it is, whether it's, your boy doesn't like to play with tractors, it likes to play with Barbies, or whether it goes to the point of sexuality or religion or whatever it is, it's just, they are your child and you should love them no matter what. And I know that I had that deep down. I absolutely do. And I've got a great relationship with my parents. But as I say, it's just at that age, it creates a lot of trauma. It creates a lot of difficulties later in life. And I just, wanted to try and not pave the way, but make it as smooth as I possibly could, knowing that I'm contributing to a life coming into the world. So.
Yeah, it's so wise and so insightful that you brought that into your experience. And I'm just like really struck by how intuitive your process has been in terms of just like responding to those little indicators that you got even on the day that you decided to go and look up sperm donation. And you're a really natural father that, you know, even but just through a different method. And I think what a gift that you've brought to the world and to so many people. And maybe that like 12 months of celibacy might have been a challenge, but like now that you look at it, you're like, wow, that was so worth it, you know?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
really, really incredible. Jo reached out to you before Ashton was even born, which apparently is quite unusual. What was it like when you received that message from her? And, you know, were you in that moment like excited about responding and having that conversation start?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I mean, Jo wasn't the first. So I had met the first recipient before that. So I'd kind of known, okay, you know, what the process is and what happens. And I was just grateful that she reached out first, because I do think it's a peculiar process, right? Like you're having a child with a stranger, essentially, from both sides. But for me, I've never really seen it as I'm having a child. I've always seen it as I'm granting the wish of somebody else, you know, and it's free for me to do that. I don't understand why people wouldn't, quite frankly. It's such an easy thing to do. But then on the flip side of that, you know, in places like New Zealand, I get it. It's a small country. You don't want to, you know, I mean, my brothers have joked around to me saying, you know, we will need to know the names of these kids one day because New Zealand's a small place and things can happen.
It's a joke, but it's also not.
Yeah.
No,
That's the ridiculous
it's a genuine thing to be there.
Yeah, it is.
Know who your cousins are.
Yeah, but no, in terms of meeting Jo, it was just like meeting the first recipient. I mean, it's just been incredible. And I just think my stance has always been, you know, I'm here, I'm available, I'm an open book. Anything you need, anything you want to know, you know, if the kids get to a certain age and they just want to know more about me or whatever it is, then I'm going to be there, because, you know, I've contributed to creating that life, and there is a degree of responsibility there, whether you like it or not. And so I've just kind of taken that challenge head on, to be honest.
It feels like there should be a bit of a campaign around it, because I think so many men just don't do it because they don't think about it. You know, it's not as if there's, because I mean, donating blood, there's lots of campaigns around that. So there's reminders, there's signs, there's ads, there's billboards around donating blood, but not around donating sperm. And it feels like so many men and young men would probably do it if they were just kind of reminded about it.
Yeah.
You know, that there are so many women out there that would be really grateful, especially the young ones, because I mean, hilarious that because you were a 20-year-old walking the door, they were like, he must be a little bit mental, so we're just going to have to you know, so we're just going to have to do a bit of a psych test on that, just because you're a young man wanting to do something good. They're like, what's going on? What's going on?
It is shocking. It's just when I tell the story, much like how you guys reacted when I listened to Jo's episode, everyone is kind of like, oh, like, you know, you were 20, what were you thinking, you know, all this sort of stuff. And it's kind of like one of those, I remember messaging my dad, you know, and thinking, obviously, you know, like with the sexuality and everything, that didn't necessarily go down well first time. I'll see what this is like. So I texted him saying, you know, thinking of being a sperm donor, any objections? And he was like, I'm happy to help as well. Let me know how many gallons they need. And I was like, that's just at the same time, great to know that you're behind this, you know, because it was not them as well, you know, like,
and obviously it's such good health.
yeah, exactly, you know. So it just is what it is. But no, I mean, it has been a great experience. There was, with the first recipient, it didn't go as smooth for her, which was really sad, because, you know, I think, I mean, you're right, Matilda, this is a problem. There's not enough men that know about it or are encouraged to actually help these women or couples. You know, there's a lot of straight couples where the man ends up being infertile, or there's same-sex female couples. There's a plethora of people who need help. And as I said before, I just think it's a crime how much it costs for them to do it. But then what I had learned is that a lot of women will wait until a certain age, right, where they're like, okay, it's not going to happen for me. I'm not going to be able to do this the natural way. I'm going to go and take this on. I'm going to achieve my dream on my own. And then they walk into the doors of these clinics and they don't realize there's a waiting list. And the number of women that become infertile during the time of waiting is just such a sad reality. And I just think that waiting list could easily be combated if more men were willing to just give it a go, just book an appointment, just do a bit of research into it, and just see. Because I do think as well these days a lot of people, or a lot less people, are deciding to actually have children. And so if there are people out there who do want them, I don't know, I just see it as a trade-off. What's there to lose, really? But in that, the first recipient did have complications. So she did go infertile, but she still wanted to carry. So I actually remember we had a 3-way coffee, and it was me, the egg donor, and the recipient. And we were all just chatting away, talking, having a nice time. And yeah, I mean, the three of us managed to produce this beautiful girl, but she was actually born 3 months prematurely because the recipient developed preeclampsia. And so as a result of that, she's been raised with having cerebral palsy, which is something, when you donate, you get so caught up in I'm doing something good for other people. You never think of a negative or adverse consequence of donating. And when I first heard the news and I saw the photo of how small the baby was, I just cried. I couldn't even contain it, because for me, I was riding this wave of, well, there's this woman who's pregnant. She's going to achieve her dream of being a mum. And, it's been a really hard road for her. But luckily, through like modern physiotherapy, they've been able to limit it to sort of one arm is affected, and everything else about her is completely on par with all the other kids. So that's been incredible to watch as well. But yeah, it's been a journey, to say the least.
Yeah. And what about your own life? Has it made you think maybe we want children in our lives? Like, is that something that you and your partner talk about?
Yeah, if Chris listens to this, he's going to be very interested to hear what I have to say.
Yes, Kyle, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I've always sort of steered towards, I don't really want children. And we got a rescue dog recently, right? And today it had 2 ticks on its forehead, and I tweezed them out because we went through the forest over the weekend. And then I just started panicking and worrying, like, what if it's got Lyme disease? What if I'm going to lose my dog? And I just cannot imagine the anxiety I would have if I had children. I honestly think I would worry that much. I would just lock them up and never let them leave the house so that I could ensure their safety. So for me, that's something that I'm working through myself. But I do think that if we ever did cross that bridge and we ever did want it, my stance was always to adopt, because the logic there is we can't have them naturally as much as we might try. It's not going to happen. So that basically, why not adopt? There's kids who need a home, and there's people who can't have them naturally. And to me, that's a natural connection. So that would be something I'd potentially explore later in life. But yeah, it's more of a no at this stage than a yes. I think we'd have to see how I go with the dog first.
Exactly. Sort the ticks out. But I know what you mean. Like, there is so much to worry about. They're such wonderful little things, but especially like as they get a bit older and you start to have to let go of their environment a little bit. Like, you can't control their environment. You send them off to school, things happen, their teachers aren't watching them all the time, and it's like that start of the worry of just like, I hope that you're equipped with some skills to deal with this on your own, and they slowly just get further and further out there and in their independence. And I remember someone saying to me, actually, because when my kids were little, I've got 3, when they were like super little, it's like, oh my God, the sleep thing. And someone said to me, it kind of doesn't get better, because then when they're teenagers, they're out late, you don't know where they are, they could be getting in a car, and you can't actually sleep until they're home. So it's just sort of get used to it, because if they're not disturbing your sleep when they're little, they'll be disturbing your sleep when they're older, because you'll be worrying about where they are.
Oh, yeah. God.
Yeah. I know. It's a real worry fest, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm enjoying this sweet spot now. My kids, Kyla, are 11 and 13. And so, we're out of the small child phase, and we're before the going out at night, adolescent phase, and I'm just really soaking it up. Just, it's busy, but it's not at least disrupting my sleep at this time, so I'm just gonna bank it.
Yeah, there's just this. Yeah, I mean, I can't even physically imagine myself doing that. Like I am a massive worry. I mean, I was on Zoom today with my therapist, and like we're going through CBT, and then she was sending me these modules on like, worrying, and it's got the stupidest title. It's like, "Stop Me, a Worrier?" question mark. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I worry about literally everything, and it's just, I don't know. I don't think I'm equipped to do it. There's
No
way.
one does though. No, and like no one has a child and brings it home and goes, I've got this, like not one single person. Everyone's like, I can't believe they let me leave the hospital with this.
Oh,
What do I do now?
Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre, isn't it? Like I remember when my son was born, my oldest, then he was like sort of wrapped in towels and blankets and stuff. And then I said to my midwife, like, what shall I dress him? Like what should I put him in? And she goes, he's your baby. You can put him in whatever you like. And I was like, what do you mean? Like how many, what, like one onesie, a jacket? Like, I don't know. I have to make this decision on my own.
Yeah, that's a whole other level, because then I would be in a spiral probably with ChatGPT being like, is this Egyptian cotton we're talking about, or is it material?
How many layers? What do you mean U+2? Is that U+2 winter layers or 2 more cotton layers? What are we talking? Anyway, if Ashton, when he's older, ever reads or listens to this interview, what would you want him to hear from you?
Oh, I would just hope that by the time he's old enough to understand that he sort of, I mean, my biggest hope would be that he doesn't think that sort of I've not been available, or I've not been there, or I've been distant, or any of those things. That's something that I'm especially mindful of. I know how loved he is. I see it in the videos. I see it in the photos. He's literally having the most incredible life. And I mean, I imagine when he's older, a lot of these things are going to stay with him, but he's so inquisitive. He's so curious. He's got so many different vast interests, both indoor and outdoors. And I just hope that he hangs on to those, and just lives life to the fullest, and just knows that a lot went into, him being. And I just hope that he truly, walks around proud and thinking he's got the coolest mum in the world, because he does.
So sweet.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And you met Ashton in person. What did it feel like to be in the same room meeting this little human in person that you did your part to help bring here?
Honestly, surprisingly easy. It was, obviously when I remember, because we'd gone back to see the family. Chris was going to meet everyone. And I remember that was probably one of the things I was most nervous about. And we were in the hotel room and I was getting ready and I was like, okay, this is next level.
He's worrying.
Yeah, it wasn't for me, And then I was like, I just hope he doesn't get all of my shitty traits. I just hope he gets all of my really great ones and all Joe's great ones. And then I got there and I walked in and, the feeling was definitely different, which I wasn't expecting. Like I'm a proud uncle, or gunkle as people like to say. I've got 2 nieces, lovely nephew, love them to bits. But this just hit differently. This was like, I was looking at him and I was like, wow, you really are like, you're like a mini me, like I'd seen photos of me when I was a kid and everything. And looking at him, I was like, wow, this is insane. But it was just a beautiful moment. And I just wanted to spend as much time with him and learn as much about who he is at that, specific point in time. Because I mean, the one thing I've learned through my nieces and nephews is, you buy them a present one year and then no way interested in that theme whatsoever the year after. It was like very much making the most of the here and now in this version of Ashton. And yeah, the privilege is just being able to watch it from afar and still being a part of that.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I really hope that they will stay in your life as they grow. Like, wouldn't it be incredible if they come over and visit you on their OE when they're sort of like becoming adults and stuff, and just be able to witness these people and these lives as they grow? Is that something that, like, do you think about that? Do you think about like what sort of relationship you may maintain with them in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's sort of, I'm just taking it like, one day at a time, one message at a time, one video call at a time. Because it's like, although I'm not necessarily in their lives sort of every day or nowhere near like a parental figure or whatever, but there's no real rule book for it or how you should act. And so I just, like with everyone else, just treat everyone how you want to be treated and put the kid first, and whatever they need or whatever questions they have, just answer them to the best of your ability. And that's basically what I've tried to do this whole time. I mean, I joke around with Chris quite a bit because Jo sometimes says, "Oh, if Ashton has an OE and comes over to the UK, would you be willing to meet him?" Blah blah. I was like, "Yeah, God, crack open the spare room. Hopefully, he's old enough to have a beer. We can, have a good chat." And then Chris is just kind of sat in the corner, like trying to comprehend and compute all of this stuff. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme where it's like this woman stood there and all these calculations going around. I look at him and I see that, because I think it is difficult. I think if it's something I've been through, and when I was dating, it was something I almost had to disclose, because I mean, it's hard. It's like a selfless decision at that time, but it also affects the rest of the decisions you kind of make in your life to a degree, like especially with a relationship. If, Chris is umming and ahhing about whether he wants kids or not, and if he does want children later on, then, does that cause friction with the relationships I have with the kids that I've, helped to create? And in my way, I don't see it. But obviously for people who are with a donor, it's difficult to understand, right? It's difficult to come to terms with. I mean, he's been incredibly supportive, but then he will crack the occasional joke. Like, they're not going to knock on the door and like, ask for hundreds of pounds or like lots of money, all this sort of stuff. I was like, no, don't worry, we're protected on that front. But, it's like the whole purpose was to be known and to be available. So I didn't want the kids to have to wait till they were 16 and then go to court and then go through that whole process of trying to get my identity. But luckily, I think it was 2004 that was made illegal in New Zealand and Australia, in terms of the donor remaining completely anonymous for the whole life. So, and I think that's a good call. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like spending your whole life with this void of not knowing half of your genetic makeup,
Yeah, totally. God, maybe we should schedule a podcast for like 15 years time.
Yeah.
And then see where you're at with all the different relationships and like how it's playing out then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean the first child that was born, the one I spoke about earlier with the two little Lego men, I bet she's going to be shocked, because I mean I've never met her, so she's probably going to be shocked whenever we do cross paths one day to realize that I'm not a fictional Lego character. I actually exist. I'm a lot bigger than a figurine. So yeah, I mean it's just one of those things, isn't it? I never really considered, not the aftermath, that's the wrong word, it makes it sound bad, but what happens afterwards when the kids grow up and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, if I can get through donating at 20, then I can get through, what's to come. So
yeah. Oh, good on you, Kyle. And first of all, thank you for sharing your story with us, because what a story it is. But also thank you for doing what you did. That's just such a selfless act. I mean, when I was 20, truly, I wouldn't have had a clue there's other people in the world. Like, I'm just completely do my own thing. So it's really nice to hear of just people thinking of others and just doing something really kind just to benefit someone else. It's really cool.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, I struggle with these sorts of things. I mean, you can ask anyone in my life. I'm not very good with compliments, but it's just, I don't know. To me, it's just, you're 20 years old. Most 20-year-old men, no matter where you are, is, let's just be real. You're masturbating quite frequently. Just redirect some of those from the tissue to a cup in a clinic. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the least evasive process. Whereas for women, it's a completely different story. Like, I would never necessarily shout from the rooftop that, everyone should be donors, because women are working with a finite resource that is decreasing with age. And I just think that is just, and it's so much more invasive in terms of the procedure and the pain and all of that sort of stuff. That's why I absolutely take my hat off to any woman that can go through that, so much more than, any kind of men giving up their sperm, because what we're doing is it's too easy to be able to help someone, And I just hope that more men will consider it.
Yeah.
Well, I think off the back of this podcast, we're on to a good start, aren't we?
Yeah, fingers crossed.
In terms of getting some other men into the
clinics.
Yeah.
And I'd love it if we like heard any feedback of someone who was like, oh, I pass this on to my friend and I've decided to become a donor, because, when you think about the people who, I can think about so many people that I know who donate blood. I mean, they're already doing a selfless act, just like move the donation slightly further south. And I think that would be just an enormous thing that you could do for so many women.
Totally. Well, I said to Art last night ahead of this podcast, Kyle, I was like, you should think about donating. I mean, the man's got fantastic genetics. He really does. Proven. So I was like, surely, share some of that round. And he was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. Just hadn't really thought about it. So there we go. It just plants the seed, as it were. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Perfect time to use that slogan. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's just, I mean, it is hard, isn't it? And you do think like, oh, what if I'm going to pass something on? I was even messaging Jo the other day. She sent me like, a big long message, as she usually does, with all these photos and videos and everything, big long update. And I took a bit longer to reply because I've been going in and out of sort of waves with my anxiety lately. And I just let her know. And as soon as I sent the message to her, I was like, I don't know if I disclosed that I had anxiety. Did I have anxiety when I was 20? And then I just went down this spiral of thinking, have I passed anxiety on to Ashton? It's just like...
anxious about the anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. This is why I can't have children. You see it now. It's just one of those things. But no, it has been the most incredible, rewarding journey. And I just really do hope that a lot more men consider it, of all ages as well,
Mm. Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on Untidy and sharing your story. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Jo as well. I'm sure Jo will be listening at some point. So thank you, Jo, for sharing your story too, because otherwise we wouldn't be talking to you.
No, absolutely not. And it's great. I mean, it's great as well. Like you were saying before, I mean, I occasionally listen to the old podcast as well, and you hear someone's story, but it's very rare that you hear both sides.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm so glad that we could make this happen and bring this to people. I think people are going to love hearing your story, and I hope they share it with all of their virile male friends, That's what we want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's hard enough for women like having to fork out all this cash, let alone, get to the point with the money and then they find out, oh, there's a waiting list. It's just like, that's just another hurdle that's not needed in these people's lives. So let's just help take that away.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, all the best for being a dog dad. That's also quite the undertaking. So you enjoy that. But I must warn you that how many people got puppies and then very immediately a baby came into their life too. So just
it's a
be aware that can happen.
Yeah.
No. Luckily, it can't happen naturally for me. So we're just going to bank that card.
Yeah, it's not going to happen by accident. Yeah.
It has to be incredibly thought through.
Oh, thanks so much, Kyle. And you enjoy the rest of your evening and we'll enjoy the rest of our day. How about that? Opposite ends of the world, modern technology.
Amazing.
Thanks, guys. Lovely to meet you.
Thanks so much, Kyle.
Lovely to meet you too.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Untidy. If you enjoyed it, we'd love your support to keep making the show. The best thing you can do to help is subscribe by hitting follow in your podcast app and leaving us a little 5-star review. You can also now watch and subscribe on YouTube and check out how these millennials are keeping up with the cool kids on TikTok and the gram. Lastly, please share this podcast with your mates. It means that we can keep building this supportive community, keep giving you untidy episodes, and just keep doing what we love to do.
Don't forget to check out mybigmoments.com for kids' books that make your tricky job of parenting a whole lot easier. Untidy listeners get a discount at checkout, so just pop in Untidy for 10% off your order. Lastly, we would like to thank all of the good people who make this podcast possible. Flicker Williams and Joe Rocker at My Big Moments for the beautiful artwork and design, Maxine London Creative for editing this episode, and Lana Byrne for creating our social content. And to you, our listeners, Araha Nui, take care. We'll see you soon.